everybody, and welcome again to Nerd to the Third Power, your one-stop shop for all things nerdy and awesome. I'm your host and master of ceremonies, Dr. Gonzo. With me, as always, this epic quest of awesomeness is our anime goddess, Kat. Kat, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
All right, okay.
You can't see it, but I'm giving a very mediocre thumbs up.
And you do sound like you went a few rounds with Mr. Dream and just barely came out of it.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate state of affairs.
Okay. And Brian, how are you doing this week?
Trying not to slowly float away. We're recording in between two thunderstorms right now, so my prayer is that like one stopped, and hopefully I'll have power before the other one starts.
Okay. All right. Skyblaze has passed out from overwork at her other job, the one that pays. So we wish her a good rest, and we'll see her next week. So tonight's show, we're going to be discussing the post-apocalypse. Why are we so fascinated with what happens after the end of the world? So, and why are we so keen on having the world end in the first place? But anyway, that's further down the show. We do have procedure to follow, so we're going to begin as always with Ask a Geek, and we got some questions here. First question here, and I'm kind of regretting that Skyblaze isn't here because she could add a lot to this question too. But it's to me from Sarah. And she writes, I've been into PC gaming for a few years. My previous PC was built by my boyfriend, with whom I am no longer together, and I want to build my own PC myself this time. What is some advice that you have for someone who wants to build a PC for the first time? There's two major pieces of advice that I have for people who want to build a PC, and it's the same piece of advice I give everybody. The first piece is, don't be intimidated by how much there is to know. Certainly, building a PC is something that you have to do that you do have to do some research on. You have to know what parts work with what. You have to know, what's compatible with what and how everything works together. And it seems like a lot. It seems like that there's just this mountain of stuff to learn, especially when you consider that the same part can be made by different manufacturers. Graphics cards are really bad for this. Like if you go look on Amazon for a GTX 1080 graphics card, you'll see the same card made by like 6 different manufacturers. So the first piece of advice I have is don't be intimidated by how much it looks like you need to know. As long as you take it step by step and pay attention to the important things, like, when you pick your CPU, what socket type is it? Okay, now that you know that, you got to find a motherboard that has that socket type. Now, what RAM does that take? If we got to find RAM that fits that motherboard. And the great thing that I found in building PC parts is that if you can type in 1150 socket type motherboard, and you'll get a listing of just those types. So as long as you pay attention to just the important stuff, it's very rare that you'll go wrong. The second piece of advice that I have, and it's one that I kind of forget myself sometimes, is don't think that you need to break the bank on your first machine. It's very easy to go into this and okay, I want to build a machine that'll do this, this, and this. Shit, the graphics card alone is like $800. Now, you don't need to get bleeding edge parts right out of the gate. You can always get older parts or parts that maybe aren't as high end as what's bleeding edge, and then upgrade later. So find out, kind of take a look at what you want, and then see where you can kind of cheap out for now. Like I can tell you, you can cheap out a little bit on your graphics card. You don't need a bleeding edge 1080 Ultra HD graphics card right out of the gate. You can get something that's a couple years old and still get a really good experience. You don't need to buy 32 gigabytes of RAM right out the gate. You can start with just 8 gigabytes of DDR3 or 4 or whatever the new standard is now. Although for the love of God, don't single stick your RAM. Always have your RAM in 2 sticks. I learned that the hard way. You don't need to have a Blu-ray drive. You can get just a basic DVD drive. You don't need a 3 terabyte hard drive. You can start with just 250 gigabytes and upgrade from there. So don't think that you have to break the bank right out of the gate. So don't be intimidated by how much you think you have to know. and don't think you have to break the bank right out of the gate. Those are the two big pieces of advice I have for people looking to build a gaming PC. So that's the question for me. And I got a question here for Kat, and it is from David. And he asked a question that's I didn't realize this was a thing. He's asking, Kat, what's your thoughts on the current trend of Monster Girl manga that's a lot of which is coming out lately which I didn't know that was a thing. Although I did. Did you see the picture that I shared here to my Facebook the other day about the one I found on my lunch break? My girlfriend is a T-Rex.
And then I untagged it because my father is also friends with me on Facebook, and I don't like when people tag me in things that are overtly sexual. And that was pretty racy. So
But like, is this a thing? Is this a new trend?
It kind of is, just in the last maybe 2 years between what's the new one? Interviews with Monster Girls, or whatever it's called, and what was the other one? Monster Musume or something like that. I don't know if that's right, or if I'm just thinking of Morning Musume, the band. But I don't know what the trend is. I don't know where it came from or where it's going. There's always, I don't want to say always, but there's been a trend over the last, I don't know, like 5 years or so towards monster shows, but like yokai shows. With demons, and like very specifically like Japanese demons. That's kind of hung back there a little bit. And I think now it's trending towards very specifically not just, like yokai, but like monster girls, very specifically. I don't know where it came from. I think it's interesting. I think it's great because I love these kind of shows. Well, I wish they weren't so ecchi. I like yokai stories, and I like stories. Specifically, I like demons and monsters in my anime. But because the trend is towards monster girls, that tends to be a little more fan servicey, a little more ecchi. So I'm not a huge fan of the ecchi stuff, but I haven't watched any of this. Even though I follow Terry Doty on Twitter, and she does nothing but post about this Interview with Monster Girls show, and I should watch it for her sake so that I can understand all these references that she's effing making. But I think it's great. I think it's fun. It's better than some of the other trends that we could be having right now. Like there was the vampire trend, or the like Western demon trend, like the Black Butler kind of demon trend. And
I remember you not being too fan of the wave of Haruhi Suzumiya copycats in the late 2000s.
Oh, Haruhi Suzumiya is fine, but you can't have every single show that come out be a tsundere lead. You just can't. It's so annoying. Or the wave of moe is kind of, it sort of died down a little bit. There's a lot of moe in that new show. What is that show with the dragon maid girl?
That really doesn't narrow it down.
I know. No, it's really popular right now when it has this little moe purple-haired girl in it that I just see popping up everywhere now, and my roommate's watching it. And I'm just like, okay, it's kind of moe, but it's again got some sort of monster in it. And I don't know why this trend came up, but I'm glad for it, because it's better than a lot of other trends we could be having right now. And as long as people are enjoying it, I guess that's good.
Okay. All righty. And let's see, Brian, I know I've got one in here for you. Here's a good one. Okay, and here's one I'm really interested in getting your question on. This one is from Richard, and he asks, when, God forbid, Stan Lee passes away, who do you think will take his mantle as the king of comics?
Well, I mean, Jack Kirby's always the king of comics, no matter what.
The tone in your voice says that this question has caused offense.
It's not offense, but I try to keep Jack Kirby's name going. He's well known within the comic book the realm. I just wanted him more of a household name, much like the case of Stan Lee. So to me, Jack will always be the king of comics. So when Stan unfortunately does pass away, he has his own legacy and greatness that has come with it. I'm not going to take anything away that he has done, but the king is and always will be Jack Kirby.
Okay, all right. Okay, so then let me modify this question then from its original asking. Who do you think the next Stan Lee is going to be?
That's a pretty good question. I don't know, really. You have to have my best guess. Part of the person who's going to spend a lot of time out in the spotlight would probably be Robert Kirkman, just because a lot of his stuff is now so big, and these are the things that he has made. Like there will always be great writers and great artists that work on characters that they did not create, but Robert Kirkman created a lot of different characters and a lot of different universes that are so well known now. So it might be him.
Okay. All righty. Okay, sounds good. All right, and that's all the ASCII Geek questions that we have for this week. Thank you, as always, for sending them in to us to the email at drgonzo@nerdofthethirdpower.com. I love getting your questions, love reading them on the air, and love answering them. So, get those questions in. We love reading them. Now, for this week's random topic of the week, Kat, I have a question that I want to put to you. You have a friend, and they come to you, and they're interested in some of your manga, and they ask if they can borrow a volume. And you, being the kind-hearted person that you are, you just like I said, it's a hypothetical.
Right. I have friends, and I'm being kind-hearted. Yes.
Theoretical, not practical. So, being in this alternate universe, being the kind-hearted person that you are, you let them borrow a volume, and then a couple days later, they return it, and as you go to put it back on your shelf, you notice that they apparently set the book down for a while, didn't read it all in one sitting, and to mark their place, they've dog-eared one of the pages. How much of their intestinal tract are you pulling out through their nostrils?
Oh, dear. I'd say 1 foot of intestinal tract for every millimeter bent. See, I'm willing to forgive a stain on the cover. I really am. Like if somebody set it down and got some water on it or something. There's many things I'm willing to forgive when someone borrows my stuff. I usually just say, hey, don't let it near your dog, and everything comes back fine. But only Satan would dog-ear a page. Just putting that out there. That's evil.
All right, and that is the topic of discussion for this week, and that is Geek Faux Paws. What are some rules of geek etiquette that you expect to see followed, or that you've observed other people expect to be followed? And just to be clear, we're not talking about stuff like don't harass cosplayers or don't send stalking photos. That's just basic. Don't be a douche. I'm talking about stuff like don't dog-ear another person's book. And I'll tell you one that set me off in my tabletop gaming days. I used to play Warhammer 40K years and years ago. And in the starter set, you used to get these 18-inch long rulers that were maybe like 1/3 of an inch wide. They were triangular. They were made out of plastic, and they had these sharp points on either end. Now, any person who's played Warhammer for any length of time will tell you don't use that to measure distance. You buy a tape ruler for that. No, you use those rulers to smack away unwary hands that reach over to touch one of your models without permission. And let me tell you, if you took one of these rulers across the back of your hand, you were typing one-handed for a while. Your 12:30 time just became a lot more complicated, and you could draw blood with these rulers. I remember the one time I went to Games Day in Baltimore, which is the big Warhammer convention that used to be held every year. I don't know if it still is. And every now and then at the open gaming table, you would just hear this loud crack, ow, of someone forgetting the rules and reaching to pick up somebody's models without asking, and then getting whacked across the wrist with one of these rulers. So, Brian, what about you? What's a geek faux pas that you have observed, or what's a bit of geek etiquette that sets you off if somebody doesn't follow it?
Well, I mean, it's not really. It's more a personal thing than an etiquette thing. But every time I buy something like a new movie or DVD or something like that, and my friend's like, "Ooh, can I see it?" I never understand the process of like looking at the cover, opening it up, taking the disc out, looking at the disc. I'm like, "What are you looking at?"
Oh, and then have any of them ever like touched the bottom of the disc with their?
Well, no one's that, but it's more along the lines like, why are you taking it out? Like, you can drop it or something's going to happen. Like, what is the point of, like, were you expecting something different to happen when you opened up the box? Was this box and fireworks came out? No, it's just a box with a DVD. Like, I don't get it.
Can I tell you about a time I damn near murdered a friend of mine when he borrowed one of my PS2 games, and when he returned it to me, there was a big, fat, greasy thumbprint on the underside of the disc.
That's clean. You can clean that off, though, fairly easily.
Yeah, but it's the principle of the thing. You know, it's like
I'm more confused.
It's like don't dog ear. It's like the same as don't dog ear a book. Don't fucking put your goddamn fingerprints all over the underside of someone else's video game.
Well, okay, I'll give you that point, but I'm more paranoid they're going to drop it and scratch it, and then it's useless.
Like they use it to lay down grout.
Well, it's just they're like, ooh, why are you taking the disc? We're not watching it right now. Put the disc back.
Okay, Kat. Any other geek faux pas you've observed?
I know we talked about don't harass cosplayers, but that's like 90% of the faux pas I can think of involve, you know, like, hey, don't treat people like shit. When you're at a convention, don't touch cosplayers without their express permission.
For some reason, that when you started that sentence, I was waiting for without express written consent, because that's what I
Major League Baseball.
Yeah. Like, no, there's no written consent. No, I don't have the documentation. Don't touch me.
I'll tell you one that sets a friend of mine off. He does sculpting, so he makes, you know, he doesn't buy you know, figures or statues off the internet. He just makes his own. He just buys like a thing of resin and just sculpts his own. The man's a fucking maniac. And he will occasionally go to cons to sell his works. And he's smart. He puts them in a case on his table so that people can't go in and touch him. But the thing that sets him off is people like pressing their faces up against the glass to look at the figures and, you know, putting their handprints all over the glass. He says that drives him nuts more than anything else. He's like, he's actually debated just getting rid of the case completely and just putting them out in the air. But then he knows if he did that, people would just fucking steal them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know in the tabletop community, it is considered the most unpardonable of sins if you reach across the table and grab another person's dice without their express written consent, sealed in the blood of a virgin goat, because of the many superstitions surrounding how those dice will roll afterwards. So I'm sure when Skyblaze comes back next week, she's gonna have stories to tell us about that. So we're going to open this up to you listeners. What are some geek faux pas that you have observed or that set you off if they aren't followed? What are just some basic little pieces of etiquette that you consider to be unspoken rules of conduct in the geek community? So yeah, that's going to be looking forward to hear what you have to say about that. And so with that, we're going to jump right into our discussion topic this week, which is the end of the world as we know it. And yet we still feel fine.
That's debatable.
Well, I mean, that's how the song goes. It's the end of the world.
And copyright strike.
Can't sing anymore, else I have to pay. But yeah, it seems like throughout the mid to late 20th century, and it's certainly grown in the last few years, there's been this sort of quiet fascination with post-apocalyptic futures, and, you know, the idea of what happens to humanity after civilization has followed. Yeah, let's try that again. After civilization has fallen. I think probably the most famous example right now would be The Walking Dead. You know, what happens after the zombie apocalypse. But, you know, properties like Fallout and Terminator, Mad Max, which we got Fury Road a couple years ago, have explored this idea. There's been all different kinds of sort of apocalypse scenarios that we've seen in fiction. So we want to kind of take a look at some of these things and kind of examine why, if we're so fond of the world that we live in right now, why are we so eager to see it end? So, yeah, Brian, why don't we start with you? What are your sort of general thoughts on this? Why do you think we're so fascinated with post-apocalyptic futures?
We want to see Kevin Costner in Waterworld.
you might be alone on that one, buddy.
Wow, that's for whatever. When you were listing off those, I'm like, oh, he didn't mention Waterworld. Oh, got to pull up the Slack here. I think there is a fascination because for the most part, for me anyway, I know for a while I wasn't going to be alive when the post-apocalyptic future was going to happen. So it's always fun to kind of fantasize what would happen about it. But it seems as years go on, it's getting a little bit closer and I'm still here. So now I'm more worried about it and trying to take notes.
I think a lot of that has to do with Elon Musk just not shutting up about how robots are going to kill us all.
Well, he's also making rockets and shooting them into space and then bringing them back down to land on water platforms. He's an interesting fellow. I don't know. It's all about it's all the what if scenarios of how would we survive if we didn't have gas or anything like that, or how would we survive if we couldn't go to this area because it's so nuclear radiated, there's monsters over there. It's the same fascination we get of what's in space or what's under the sea, for me.
Okay. Kat, what about you? Why do you think we're fascinated with the apocalypse?
I'm kind of with Brian. We try and picture what we would do in that scenario. Because we all sort of, we have the privilege of not having to live through it, probably, maybe. So we can go, oh yeah, I would totally do. Everybody has gone and thought about what they would do in a zombie apocalypse. Everybody thinks that, oh, I'm so smart, I would do that, even though we all know that if it really happened, we'd all just die. And I think there's just, it's sort of maybe it interests us because it's always a possibility, we watch a lot of films and we go, well, yeah, but that would never happen in real life. The apocalyptic films are supposed to generally be humanity's future. So it's something where if the story has done it, we should be able to totally picture how this could happen to our society. So it should feel at least a little bit realistic to some degree for the audience. So it's that much easier for us to picture ourselves in the events of the and figure out what we would do.
Do you think it might also have something to do with the sort of a twisted kind of hope that, if with the world being as crazy as it is today, not going to go into details, but everyone knows what I'm talking about, that we'll survive and we'll persevere and we'll continue on even afterwards. That we might be trying to give ourselves hope.
It could be.
And wow, that really brought the mood down quick, didn't it?
Well, it got dark in here.
I just kicked the legs out from underneath this conversation.
Oh, there was such optimism, though. I was like, should I stomp on it? Should I spit at it? We will survive and have a hopeful future. I'm like, have you seen what's been going on lately?
wait, Brian, I may need to ask you to insert pictures of kittens and rabbits on the feed for this episode. I'm sorry, Kat, you were about to say something?
I was going to say. But yeah, it's sort of hope when all is lost. I think a good example, it's your Mad Max style post-apocalyptic future. It's apocalyptical. Hero who will rise against all of the odds. And I think a lot of these apocalyptic future franchises have a chosen one, like Divergent, again, The Matrix. They all have sort of your main character basically is the one who's special, who and usually that person is your everyday person, your every man or your every girl, a kind of normal person who has something special about them that they didn't even know about. So it's sort of, I guess, your average Joe can relate, because here's this horrible anything can do.
I don't know. I can't fight off an army of robots as the next Jesus.
All right,
Not with that attitude.
All right, so let's get down into specifics here. Let's talk about some post-apocalyptic properties that we enjoy and why. And Kat, I'm going to start with you because I'm interested. Because outside of say like Trigun, which isn't even really post-apocalyptic based in its storytelling, at least not in the anime. But what are some post-apocalyptic properties in anime that you enjoy and what drew you to them? So, Brian, what about you? What's a post-apocalyptic property that you enjoy and what drew you to it?
It's always Mad Max was always, I think, one of them. That or Escape from New York was sort of the best ones. Though Escape from New York, I'm not sure is considered post-apocalyptic because it was just New York went wrong. Well, then L.A., but that's a whole nother movie we don't like talking about.
Harlem went just a little crazy.
It's so strange. I really don't go into a lot of post-apocalyptic stuff. Like, really, Mad Max is the only one that I really got into, just because I like the idea of this post-apocalyptic world is broken up into these ridiculous gangs, and so it's just gang warfare everywhere you kind of go. It's weird because here's the weird thing. Going to like my little genre of area of comics, it's so strange because it feels like in comics, like the world is always 3 steps away from going completely wrong. Like, for whatever reason, just, someone sneezed the wrong way or Spider-Man said the wrong joke and just everything fucking blows up. And I don't know. I've lost count how many times there's like, we're going to show you the vision of the future. Well, it's shit. Yep, that's the way it goes. Like, wow, for a world of superheroes, our future always seems to be fucked. But it's always a different fucked every time we look at it. It's a weird situation. I think and that's the sort of fascination of, what happens when a superhero doesn't do what they're supposed to do and things actually like go wrong and the villain wins and all this kind of weird stuff. So I really don't know. I don't get a lot of the post-apocalyptic view of it just because it does turn, depending on the franchise, kind of depressing and you don't really want to follow it anymore. I like the Maze Runner. The Maze Runner was really weird. Why didn't they just build a ladder to go on top of the maze?
Well, because then there wouldn't have been a movie. I know that everyone's probably expecting me to talk about the Fallout franchise, and that's definitely one of my favorite post-apocalyptic stories. But I actually want to talk about one that I like because it presents kind of a more hopeful version of the story, and that's the Postman. And for those of you who haven't seen it, the story basically goes the society is pretty much collapsed, and there's this one guy. He's a bit of a he's just kind of a. I don't really want to say a rogue, but he's not really he's not one of those big, he's not really into the whole doing things for the greater good kind of guys. And he starts posing as he starts pretending that he's delivering letters, from people and giving them out to people. And, eventually, he kind of fools all these people into thinking that, he's bringing back the mail service and establishing lines of communication, and everyone buys into it. And eventually, over the course of the movie, he starts, opening lines of communication between these disparate settlements, and you see kind of the first steps of an ad hoc new society forming. And I really like that story because it speaks to me of the idea that we as human beings we're social creatures, and that we need each other, and we need to be able to depend on each other and work with each other in order to survive and ultimately to have fulfilling lives. And to see something just as simple as being able to write a letter to somebody become a possibility again after so much time where you don't know anything about what's going on in the outside world. It was a story that I really enjoyed, really, had a profound effect on me. So, it was one of those stories where, I don't know, the fact that it was set in a post-apocalypse was almost incidental. It wasn't the center of the story. Does that make sense at all?
Were you also drawn to it because it also starred Kevin Costner?
Actually, that's actually the only Kevin Costner movie that I can name off the top of my head. Other than that, if a movie's got Kevin Costner, I'm just like, okay, whatever.
So really, did not even Field of Dreams, like his most famous film?
No, I'm not a sports guy.
Nothing to do. Okay, well, not going to get into it. Not going to get into it.
I know
if you more about family.
I know if you build it, he will come, and absolutely nothing else about that film.
All right, it's not going to get. I just think it's hilarious that this has become the Kevin Costner show. You know that's going to be the Mel Gibson show because of Mad Max.
Okay. And then, of course, you know, there's the, do either of you guys watch Walking Dead at all? I know I haven't, even though people tell me I should.
I watched it up to season 3, and then it's kind of become shit.
Okay. But, that's sort of the big post-apocalyptic show right now is The Walking Dead. And, that was one of those things that just kind of came out of nowhere, because, like, I remember the comics being, you know, kind of a talk-worthy thing during the brief 9 months that I actually worked in that comic book store. But the television show just seemed to kind of come out of nowhere and take the world by storm. So I guess the next question is, why do we see zombies as being such an appealing form of a world ending?
I don't know if it's considered appealing. I think it's more along the lines of it's easy to do. You know, it's easy to just have a couple of people as dead people. Like, that seems to be, I mean, it's a general fear, but it's just easy to sort of put together. It's why we've had so many zombie films for so long, you know? And I think also the appeal to it is, even though things look bleak, it still could be a world that you could win, because, you know, zombies are, you know, shoot them in the head, they're gone. And any sort of realistic scenario, a zombie apocalypse would only probably last a couple of weeks and then it'd be over.
Okay, all right. So let's kind of turn our discussion inward then, and let's talk about. I'm gonna get your opinions. What's an apocalypse scenario that legit scares you? Like, that you're legit, you know, a little kind of leery of something that might, maybe you don't think it'll actually come to pass, but like if it did, like that's it. You're done. You're cashing your chips. So, Kat, what about you? What's an apocalypse scenario that scares the pants off of you?
I guess because we all sort of grew up, you know, at a very young age and knew about the Cold War. Mutually assured destruction is my post-apocalyptic fear. Half of the planet will be nuked, and that humanity will be just disfigured and sick because of the radiation, and there's like nothing you could do because all of the hospitals are wiped out. And living after that is horrifying to me.
That's the same answer I was going to give, just because it's the easiest way to be. It's like, oh, something's coming. You're like, that's it. Nothing I can do about this. And living in my state, they're going to get Dallas first, because everyone thinks Dallas is the capital. So I'll be hit second.
Okay. All right, so I guess I get to get the fantastic answer, and the one that I'm really leery about is a machine uprising, and you want to talk about a property where you get to actually see the apocalypse happen, and the immediate aftermath. Go back and watch the Ronald D. Moore 2003 Battlestar Galactica series, especially the 2-hour movie that kicks off the series, because you actually get to see the Cylon strikes that wipe out the 12 colonies, and what's left of humanity has to pile into all these starships and go off into space on this, you know, ragtag fleet on this slim hope that Earth is out there and that they'll be able to find a new home. And meanwhile, the Cylons are just doggedly pursuing them throughout the whole series. That's so yeah. I've maintained for a long time that you know, everyone likes to talk about, like, you know, the end of the world is going to come with the Antichrist. The Antichrist is going to be a machine. That's what I think it's going to be. I think that's going to be what finally rises up and destroys us. It's going to be a machine, a beast of our own making. And if it calls itself Shodan, then that's it. I'm cashing my chips and I'm walking out the door, because I've played System Shock. I know how that story ends.
Well, I don't know. I feel like it's really not that threatening. If like a Roomba comes after me going, kill humanity, I'm just going to... The wheels are above it and going, well, you tried.
I've never been that afraid of a machine uprising, just because, like, I mean, like, sometimes I think, yes, this is how Apple takes over the world. But most of the time it's like, computers and stuff are so unreliable. Then I'm like, okay, I get that Apple is probably going to take over the world one day, but you just mess one thing up and it's a brick.
Skynet doesn't seem like such an imposing thing when we're living in a world where one wrong move can brick your smartphone.
Exactly.
It's not even that. Just ask, like as the computer comes in, go like, okay, Google, I'm going to ask you this question. Or ask the question. They're going, is he going to ask? I don't. Where'd he go?
So, but
like my smart TV is not that smart.
But
it lives with me.
But you want to know a post-apocalypse story that actually gives me legit nightmares, and like I absolutely love it, but it just terrifies the ever-living hell out of me. And that's oh god, what's his name? Oh,
is it Kevin Costner?
No, not he's a writer. Oh god, what's his name?
Kevin Costner can write.
He did the he did the City on the Edge of Forever. Harlan Ellison. Harlan Ellison. If you want to read a post-apocalypse story that will just give you legit nightmares, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Because and I think I've discussed this before. The story is basically about this computer, this super powerful computer has basically achieved godlike power. It can actually manipulate reality, and it has wiped out all of humanity except for these 5 people who it has kept alive through unexplained means and is just torturing them for over 100 years. And there's a shining moment in the book where the computer contacts the narrator telepathically and just gives the most epic "I hate you" speech I have ever read. He's just like, look, there are millions of miles of silicon wiring that make up my body. If you were to carve the word hate on every micro inch of that silicon wiring, it would only equal 1,000th of the hate that I have for you and what you represent. And I'm just like, damn, this guy's got some anger issues. But it is just, I can't even tell you, I can't even say anymore without spoiling it, but it is just a genuinely terrifying story, and I love it so, but every time I read it, I wake up screaming in the middle of the night for the next, 2 weeks. And the room goes quiet. Which means
I mean, when you say it like that, I don't really know what to come up against, you know? How do I follow this? I don't have a Kevin Costner joke here.
I mean, you've seen Waterworld, so you might also wake up screaming every night for 2 weeks.
Well, yeah, but that's not because of anything in the movie itself. That's because I saw Waterworld. I mean, hell, I wake up screaming at night because I saw Pixels.
Well, that's your fault.
Like, oh god, I can't believe I spent money to see Pixels. Oh!
Are we ever going to live in a post-apocalyptic world of just Adam Sandler movies?
Oh god.
Oh my god. I have new nightmares. Don't even joke about that. A future where every movie stars Adam Sandler and is written by Michael Bay. That's just, no. That's my vision of hell. That's it. Like, that's gonna be my nightmare now. I'm gonna have a dream that, I'm on my deathbed, and just as everything goes white, the words, directed by Michael Bay, will appear.
Was your life directed by Michael Bay? I feel like there'd be way more explosions.
Buddy, you don't know what I do in my off hours.
All right, that's a good place to end the show.
All right. What are some other post-apocalypse scenarios that give you the willies?
We've pretty much kind of gone through that area right there. Like, what else is there? You know?
Okay.
I lived a week without my cell phone. That kind of sucked, but I don't think it's really post-apocalyptic.
I don't know. There are some people. All right. Okay.
I almost want to say that some of it is due to the fact that the material has been there for a long time, but now we don't know how to make any original movies. So a lot of the post-apocalyptic material is just getting made into movies because they don't have anything else.
Yeah, like movies, video games, like the Fallout series, like you said. Like the new one that came out, just recently came out like a couple of weeks ago. Isn't that a whole post-apocalyptic thing where men or human race decide to say, "Hey, machines are bad," kind of thing? It's the in thing to do. It's what setting can we make at this? You know, I don't know. Post-apocalyptic. You know, we'll shoot it in Detroit.
Wow.
Well, I think
This got cynical real quick.
Yeah. I think now that the internet has become such a great thing, we're all so connected with each other. We have information at our fingertips. We're way too informed for our own mental health. So we're kind of constantly feeling like we're going to die and we're in danger because we have access to all this information about terrible things going on in the world, and we're sort of coming to the realization as, a society that
shit's fucked.
Shit's fucked, and we could die at any moment for stupid reasons. And so now that we have that realization, we're turning to our media and putting all of those fears into our media.
Damn it, media!
Okay, alright. I've always kind of had a fascination, at least with the Fallout series, with kind of seeing, how a society would function in ways different from, a modern society. I think part of it is my fascination with sort of cowboy culture, especially Fallout New Vegas was very, very much had sort of a frontier cowboy theme to it, and I think that that's one of the only ways that we can bring back that sort of frontier attitude is if we just lay waste to everything that we've built on this earth. Because let's be honest, there's really nothing else to discover on this great big blue globe that we call home. So in order to kind of bring back an era where we can actually rediscover, we have to destroy what's already there and start from scratch. I don't know. Maybe I'm just rambling. Does that make any sense whatsoever?
Well, we haven't discovered everything. Like I said, we don't really know what's in the deepest, darkest parts of the ocean, because if we try to go there, we'll die.
No, Andy Serkis has told us what's down there. Fucking cuttlefish. And I don't want to mess with that.
That could be one thing. You never know. You never know.
I
like to hope and dream, damn it.
You just want to live in a real-life C-Lab 2020?
More like C-Lab 2021, knowing my luck.
Wow, that dates us really well.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Okay. All right. So, that I guess final general thoughts on post-apocalyptic fiction and its place in the world. So, Kat, why don't we start with you?
Getting a little tired of it. Obviously, there have been quite a few films that all feel kind of the same, and I wish we'd move past it. That don't make me depressed for the future of humanity.
Okay. Brian, what about you?
I'm kind of the same. Though I've sort of I've not ignored it, just don't pay too much attention to it as it goes on, but it does seem to creep in way more than it really should, so maybe you should just try to hold back on it just a little bit, try to figure something else out.
Okay, well, I prefer to cling to the optimist side of it, which I think that we're fascinated with these stories out of the sense of trying to give ourselves some hope that even if things go tits up, that we will survive and continue on. So yeah, so that's about all the time that we have for Nerd of the Third Power this week. But before we end, one little bit of bookkeeping that I completely forgot. We're coming up on our 200th episode, which we're really excited about. And we're not going to be doing anything as huge as we did for our 100th episode. Oh, God, no. Don't get me wrong, we had a lot of fun, but trying to edit that thing together into a 6-hour-long monstrosity, holy shit, never again. But we are going to be taking some ideas, tossing some ideas around about something fun that we can do for our 200th episode. So pay attention to our Facebook feed if you haven't already. We'll be putting some updates there on what we might be doing for our 200th episode. So, yeah, that's going to be fun. So with that, that's all the time that we have for Nerd of the Third Power this week. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. We will see you next week. As always, I'm Dr. Gonzo.
And I'm Brian.
All right, we'll see you next week. Taka, play us out.